you guys see the title, I'm going to talk about Rachel Dolezal. I just watched her YouTube documentary, and I have to say I was kind of hesitant of watching it just because I was like, I don't think I really want to watch this, just because I've heard about all her lies and everything. But to be honest, the actual documentary is fascinating, and it hit home a lot for me. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about why I can relate to her in certain ways, and I hope you like, subscribe, talk to me. I know I'm going to have hate on it, but you know what? Whatever. That's what the internet does, is hate. Okay, so Rachel grew up in a white family, and she was, you know, basically named the outcast of the family. Her brother was perfect. She was born into like this really culty family, and her witness on her birth certificate was named as Jesus Christ, and her mother said that her birth was one of the hardest births that she's ever had. I mean, like, so out of the womb, Rachel was already feeling the hate from her family, and she just had this struggle with her identity. And so, you know, growing up, she was this white girl, blonde hair, blue-eyed white girl that had a family that really didn't care for her as much as they cared for her brother. And she didn't identify with how she was growing up. She identified completely different, and she, you know, came out to the world when she finally, you know, graduated college and everything as a black woman. And, you know, there were people that were so angry at her for lying. And it's like, how many times does she have to tell her story about who she was, about who, you know, she isn't, and or growing up in a horrible racist, or like, not a racist family, I guess a culty family, because they did adopt black children, and they basically beat them with belts and beat them horrifically in other ways. So Rachel started to protect her adopted brothers and sisters. And so she's protecting her brothers and sisters, and then, you know, she's having to identify with a race that she doesn't identify with. So she ends up marrying a black man and, you know, has children. And she's still, you know, identifying more with the black culture. And so she starts to change, you know, the way she dresses, and she starts to change her hair, and she starts to change things about herself, and then she starts to identify with her true self. And let me tell you, this hit home for me because as a child, I struggled with being a white-headed red girl, a white-headed red-headed girl. I mean, I have red hair. I have curly, kinky red hair, and as a child, I identified with the black culture more than I ever did with the white culture. Even growing up and playing soccer and everything, like I would play soccer with the white kids, but I would identify more with the black community. And as a child, I braided my hair, or my mom braided my hair up into little braids, and I felt more comfortable that way. And who's to say, yeah, she lied, but who's to say she can't identify as a black woman? I mean, I sit here and I struggle with this because we can allow men to say that they're women and they don't ever once have a period. They never once go through cramps. They never once bleed from their vagina. They never once can have a baby. But we can give them that identity and say, you know what, you are a woman. And that's okay because you've never gone through the struggle of being a woman. You've never gone through the struggle of being catcalled on the streets, or being grabbed by your vagina, or being grabbed by your boobs. So all these black women are saying, okay, well, Rachel can't identify with being black because she's never been pulled over by a cop. She's never been, you know, ostracized because of her black skin. But she has gone through a struggle. So her struggle isn't identifying with your struggle, so it's not good enough. But men can sit here and go, you know what, I'm going to cut my penis off, and I'm going to be a woman, and you're going to have to accept that. Now, don't get me wrong. I accept everybody the way that they think that they identify as, but it pisses me off when a white woman who has gone through her own struggle and her own, you know, life story can't say, you know what, I identify as a black woman. And you can only identify as a black woman as if you've gone through the struggle. That's not fair. It's not fair, because a man can, you know, say that he's a woman and say, you know what, I now identify as being a woman, but he's never had to shove a tampon up his vagina to stop the bleeding. So, okay, so he's never gone through our struggle. So why are we so accepting of men cutting off their penises and not accepting of a woman who's saying, you know what, I'm going to try to do, she did amazing stuff for the community, of the black community. And maybe she, you know, wasn't 100% born black, but she did go through struggles of her own. She did have struggles in her own family. She did, you know, she struggles daily. I mean, now that she's gone through the fight of defending herself for years, is that enough struggle for you to, you know, say, okay, well, she can go ahead and identify as what she wants to identify as? Like, how much struggle does one person need to go through in order to say, hold on, I need to put this down because I'm sweating like a pig. Okay, so how much struggle does a person need to go through to identify as the person that they identify as? Because to me, if a man wants to be a woman, he has to, you know, basically go through the struggle of having cramps and shoving a tampon in his vagina and having real blood come through it. If he wants to call himself a woman, then that's what we have to do to allow him to be a woman, right? I mean, I don't get it. Like, all the hate that this woman received afterwards, she basically needed to come out and say, okay, yes, I was born white. I identify as being a black woman. But at the same time, like, she had to go through hell to say, you know what, this is who I am. This is who I am. So we can accept men with open arms, you know, saying that they're, you know, men are gonna be, you know, I don't even know how to say it. Like, men can cut off their dicks and say, now I'm a woman, and we can, you know, open the world up for them. And I'm not against, you know, anybody doing what they gotta do to feel like who they're supposed to be. But what I am against is the fact that, you know, Rachel, all she did was identify with being black, and that made her life harder. Why would somebody choose to have a harder life? Like, it just dumbfounds me, the horrificness of the people coming out and saying, well, you haven't been in my shoes, and you haven't done this, and you haven't been pulled over by the police, and all this stuff. And it's like, but she has had a struggle. Her struggle has been different, but she still struggled with her life. So, and, you know, her choosing to be, you know, black, that's going to add, you know, strain to her life. I mean, to be the beautiful blonde-headed white girl that she was born would have been much easier for her. Duh. Like, why would she choose to have a harder life if she didn't identify as that? She could be, you know, this white girl her whole life and live this life of, like, being miserable and everything. Or she can be happy and be this black woman that she desires, and she could be the head of NAACP and helping the community. She's out there in the community fighting with the community that she wants to help. Like, for me, I identified as a young woman to get along better with the Black culture. Like I really, really embraced it. I didn't go as far as Rachel did, but she wasn't lying to the community and then hurting the community. She was helping in any way shape or form she could. And then she gets bashed by the people that she's trying to help. Only because, I bet you, because, you know, all they want to see you do is go through the struggle. Yes, be honest about it, but that's okay. She lied. She lied about it. Let's move on. Let's not hang her at the stake because she identifies with being a different race. Like, it just makes no sense to me. I support her. I watched her documentary. If you haven't watched the documentary, I suggest you do, because it puts a lot of perspective into who she is and why she feels the way she feels. She's been ostracized by so many people, and it's like, why would she choose that life? Especially if she could have chose a life of just being this white girl, this perfect blonde-headed white girl. And, you know, nobody would be mad at her then if she was just, oh, no, you guys would be mad at her then. She would do something wrong. It's just so funny. You can't make anybody happy but yourself, and she's making herself happy, and then that pisses people off. It makes no sense to me. Like, give your thoughts and your opinions on this subject, but I'm going to say to the trolls and to the haters, I'll just go ahead and delete you, block you, do what I gotta do. I'm supporting her. I think that, you know, I as well identified. If you've seen my videos, you'll see where I was in kindergarten and I went up to my teacher with pencil sharpening on my skin. I rubbed it in and I said, look, I'm Black. And for a child to identify at that young of an age, there is something there. How do we know that we're not reincarnated? How do we know that we weren't something before we are right now who we are? I just don't think that it's right for us to be open arms about a man wanting to be a woman and never saying, well, you have to go through the struggle. You have to go through everything that I've gone through before you can be a woman. No, we let them be who they want to be and say, oh, okay, you can cut off your penis and do whatever you got to do. I am sweating like crazy right now. It's Arizona. It's summer. We're never gonna not sweat again. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. I support Rachel. I support you, and I am just so proud that you never gave up your fight, because that's what it is a fight to the end.